After all these years, it's still a problem, isn't it, playing high and losing your lip? Well, it is for most, but not for my students. Just for a minute, think about playing the trumpet like riding a bike. To ride a bike, you need to do two things: power the bike and steer the bike. You power the bike with your legs and you steer it with your arms. Two jobs, two mechanisms. Simple, right? But imagine doing both jobs with just your legs, or powering and steering with just your arms. In other words, doing both jobs with a single mechanism. Going up would feel hard, right? And you'd get tired really quickly. Does that sound familiar? To play the trumpet, you also need to do two things: power your trumpet by producing sound and steer your trumpet by changing pitch. You power the trumpet with your lips and you steer the trumpet with your lips. That's why high notes and stamina is a problem. The mechanism formed by your lips we call an aperture is basically struggling because it's being forced to do two jobs at the same time. Job one, vibrate to make sound, and job two, change the pitch of that sound. It actually has no problem just creating sound, and it has no problem forming a small or big space, which you need to play high and low. But doing both at the same time puts huge strain on the single aperture. And that's the reason why for most, playing the trumpet feels like you're frantically steering and pedaling up a long, steep, winding hill using just your arms. Now imagine having two apertures, one for each job. Wouldn't that be so much easier? Well, that's how MDAS, the maze double aperture system, works. Enter the teeth. Your lip aperture still creates the sound, but a second teeth lip aperture steers the pitch of that sound, and it's as easy as riding a bike. As this is a follow-on video from Easy High Notes in 5 minutes and MDAS, the high note secret, I won't go over the same technical ground again, but look at those videos and their comments and you'll see they've helped hundreds of players, so be sure to check them out. Now, a double aperture system probably isn't something you've heard of before, but that's a good thing, isn't it? Think about it. We have a problem which has existed forever. Doesn't that suggest the answer isn't out there? Because if it was, we wouldn't still have the problem, right? So what I'm saying is, maybe it's time to look for something you haven't heard of. There are hundreds of high note videos out there with hundreds of great ideas. So why believe me? Because this isn't an idea. It's a proven way to play high. Because I'm not telling you how to play higher, I'm showing you how to play high. There's a big difference. Because I'm not giving you something just to help with the problem. I'm giving you something to solve it. There's a big difference. You can try strengthening your face. That's like building up the muscles in your arms to pedal your bike better. Yes, it will help a bit, but you're still pedaling with your arms. You can try high tongue techniques. That's like having gears on your bike. Yes, it will help a bit, but it's still one mechanism straining to do two jobs. You can try pushing your jaw forward. That's like changing the height of your seat or adjusting your handlebars. You can try air compression. That's like riding with the wind behind you. All these things help you play higher. But if you want to play high, look at what you have naturally and start using your teeth. Because if you have the right teeth, and most players do, they give you a really small high note aperture on a plate without you doing very much at all. No need for relentless muscle strengthening exercises to strain and put stress on those tiny muscles in your face, which will eventually tire anyway at some point because they're tiny muscles. Teeth, on the other hand, never tire. So the big question for you now is, can I use a double aperture? Let's find out. The first step is to see whether your teeth have the right shape or position to form a very small teeth lip aperture, what I call an HFA, a high frequency aperture. It's not always obvious, so you need to study your upper and lower teeth 3 different ways. Straight on, bird's eye view, so looking down, and worm's eye view, so looking up. Look for any gaps between your teeth like this. Do they have any chips or interesting shapes? Are there useful size differences? Are they crooked? Does one jut out? Because any teeth like that can potentially form an HFA. Most players will have something they can use. It might be really, really small. It might be to the left side or the right side. It doesn't matter. If you've got any of these, you have the potential to discover easy high notes and an easier way of playing. You have the potential to use a double aperture system. Not because I'm telling you you do, but because the evidence is right there inside your mouth. It's also right here in front of your eyes. The second step is to form the aperture. And as a general rule, if you're using an upper tooth, you'll be forming the HFA with your lower lip. If you're using a lower tooth, you'll be forming the HFA with your upper lip. You've got to think multi-dimensionally with this. What I mean by that is your aperture can be up facing, down facing, or straight on. Your lip might need to go in front of your teeth, behind your teeth, or maybe level with them. Again, it doesn't matter as long as it forms a small opening space or hole. The third step is to form your outer aperture, which I call the sound aperture, because the trumpet uses this aperture to create sound. Now, I've worded that very carefully. The trumpet uses this aperture to create sound. The sound aperture is formed by the lips. Your HFA is already using one lip, so simply bring the other lip a bit closer to it to form the second aperture. So you can see my lower lip forms my HFA with my chipped tooth, and I bring my upper lip closer to it to form my outer sound aperture. Now, I also have some lower teeth which jut forward. So I can use them to form an HFA with my upper lip. I then bring my lower lip closer to it to form my sound aperture. Don't overthink the sound aperture. The final step, well, for today at least, is creating a high note by default. Now, this is really important because your default is what happens when nothing is selected. And that's the big difference between learning to play high and just learning to play higher. Your high note should just happen. So I'm going to do step 2 and 3, place my mouthpiece over my upper tooth HFA and see what comes out when I push some air through it. There, so my default note is a high C. It's always a high C. Even when I'm really tired, it's a high C. Now I'm going to place it over a lower tooth HFA and see what default note that gives me. So in both cases, I wasn't trying to play high. I just created the conditions to play high. All I did was simply push air through my HFA and wait for a note, or in that case, notes, to appear. Probably like you, that's very different to what I did when starting to learn the trumpet in my very first lessons. I certainly didn't wait for a note to appear then. I tried to force one out. And when it came out, well, let's just say it was going to take a long time to cycle up that hill. Here's my son, after just a few weeks of playing, taking his default note for a ride. Great, there. 2-octave range in 1 month. If you're using an HFA, your default should be high. Without trying high, easy high, effortless high, consistently high, high when you're fresh, high when you're tired. So how do you find it? You don't, it finds you. But here's some general guidance to help when you're experimenting. First of all, always start the note with air only. Don't articulate it with your tongue. Increase your blowing effort gradually and wait for something to happen, like this. The most important thing is not to block your HFA when placing your mouthpiece, and believe me, there are lots of ways that can happen. Far too many for me to talk about now. So every step in the process, from mouthpiece placement to pushing air or blowing, needs you to be asking, how is this affecting my HFA? Your lips are soft, right? When the mouthpiece presses against them, they flatten against your teeth and bulge into the mouthpiece, potentially filling in your gap. So if your HFA is to the left, you're going to have to place your mouthpiece to the left. Or when the rim presses against your lip, it will be forced into your gap. Likewise, the right side HFA. And always experiment with high and low mouthpiece placement. Forget all that nonsense about central mouthpiece placement. Playing the trumpet is such a personal thing. I've helped so many players instantly unlock high notes simply by changing their mouthpiece position. And plenty of great players, past and present, play off center. And I haven't met or seen one who wasn't using some form of HFA, even though they're probably not aware of it. When experimenting, always be guided by your HFA and keep it open. If you're using a front-facing HFA, like a gap or, like me, a chip between the teeth, try to direct your airstream out fairly straight. If it's a down-facing HFA, direct your airstream at the floor. And if it's an upward-facing, try to direct your air towards your nose. Your normal way of playing will always be pulling you back, so thinking about air direction can really help. You can't have high notes without air pressure. You can't have high notes if you're doing this. Flow is for flutes. Flow is for tubas. Put your mouthpiece inside your mouth, cover the end and blow. That's air pressure. That's what air pressure feels like. This time, while you're blowing, slowly roll your finger away at the end of the mouthpiece, opening no more than about a quarter, and keep blowing. So when you start to push air through your HFA, you should be hearing this. Not this. High air pressure is the sensation you should feel when playing your default note. Finally, if you're getting this, but not this, or depending on what note comes out, experiment with your sound aperture. You can hear and feel air pressure, but the lips aren't being vibrated. If you're getting this, but not this, or one of those high notes, experiment with your HFA. Your sound aperture is doing its job, but your HFA is probably too open. If you want to get yourself started with MDAS and set up your best HFA possible, why not consider a lesson? Just one session will change the way you play and think about the trumpet forever. Playing high for me is never about the high note. It's about what comes with it. Play high easily, and you'll do everything else the same way. But just because you learn to play effortlessly doesn't mean you'll be able to play high that way. So I'll leave you with a short trailer of me on a leisurely Sunday afternoon bike ride through the countryside and then being chased by goblins. That got me pedalling. See you next time.